Hello there, good people of the world and fellow homebound workers. I'd like to share with you today 5 tips for working from home. Now, these come from over 20 years of a career primarily spent either working remotely or from home. I think over those 20 years, maybe 1.5 or 2 years have actually been spent going into an office on a regular basis, an 8 to 5 type schedule, that sort of thing. The rest have been spent working from client sites, working from home on some days of the week, and then more recently, predominantly working from a home office. In my case, with a global organization where I work with and have people working for me all around the world. So let's jump right into it. Tip number 1, win the morning. I did a video on this a while ago. It was one of my first videos, like 3 people watched it. So to those 3, thank you. Hopefully you found some degree of enlightenment. But basically what I would suggest if you're working from home, set up a morning routine and don't make it something where you're up, 10 minutes before your first meeting and you're kind of rolling out of bed and starting your day off in a rush to get to the first thing. I personally like to get up pretty early. I get up around 5:15. I meditate in the morning. I have some time to think, to kind of go through my calendar, go through what I want to accomplish that day, get myself mentally and physically organized, and then the kids wake up for school. I get them breakfast, get them out for the bus, and have a little bit of time with them each morning. But I have a fixed routine, and I make sure that routine includes some time for me to get organized, have some quiet, focused time. If it's not your jam, you don't have to get up at 5, but I would at least make sure you get up and give yourself enough time to have some quiet time, have some focused time. If nothing else, be able to look through your calendar, see what the day has in store for you, look through your task list, see what kind of items you want to reprioritize or move around, and basically end that period with an idea of here's the 1 or 2 major things you want to accomplish that day. When you do start to get into your calls and your meetings, you'll be more focused, you'll be more prepared, you'll be more kind of ready and in the flow of the day versus, rolling out of bed and sort of rushing to get to your first meeting. Speaking of meetings and that sort of thing, they're kind of the bane for remote workers. Everyone I talk to, one of their biggest complaints is I look at my calendar and the thing's just wall to wall, Zoom or Teams meetings. I barely have time to go to the bathroom. That's the common complaint. And that brings about tip number 2, which is master your calendar. You could work for your Outlook or Google Calendar where the thing just, barrages you every 30 minutes telling you need to call into something, you need to do something, you need to be talking to someone, or, worst case by 2 or 3 in the afternoon, you're 15 minutes late for something because of all these other calls that have ran over. Or alternatively, you can take control of your calendar and use it as a tool to help you focus and have a productive day. So what I mean by that is go in and schedule time for you where you have time for focused work. I block out my morning. Again, I go through that win the morning routine, get the kids off to school. I try and get a workout in, generally a run or something like that. And then I have my calendar open for meetings. I also block an hour for lunch each day. I usually don't sit there and have this elaborate 1-hour lunch, but I use that time to, again, kind of say, what did I do this morning? What's happening in the afternoon? Make sure I understand and am prepared for everything that's going on, and have a little time to take a break. I might go out and take a walk. I might read a book for 10, 15 minutes. I might fart around the internet for 10 or 15 minutes. But I have that break in the middle of the day that's blocked, that's defined, that's scheduled. Similarly, I'll put my kids' key activities in my calendar. I don't necessarily put in what they are or anything. I don't, specifically schedule the exact times. But if I've committed to taking my son to scouts or taking my daughter to dance or taking the kids to one of their sporting events, I'll block that time out and just put NA in the description in case anyone needs to read it or whatnot. And that way people aren't scheduling meetings. I'll try and put a 10 or 15 minute buffer so I don't have to take meetings in the car unless it's urgent. And that way when people go and try and book those, if they're rude, they'll just stomp over it. If they're a reasonable human being, they'll say, hey, the only time I can meet with you is 8 p.m. I noticed you have it blocked. Is there a way you could make an exception? And then we can have a conversation. But in that case, I'm in control of my time, and it's me that decides whether I want to give that time to somebody versus just letting them, have access to 24 hours of my day each and every day. Similarly, if you can set up one of those little things where people are able to book your calendar that are external, if you meet with a lot of clients, if you meet with a lot of customers, I think there's one tool called Calendly that everyone uses. Outlook or Microsoft now has a tool called Bookings, where essentially you can send somebody a link and they can go in and find a time that's available. You can set parameters, so I don't allow external meetings on Friday afternoons if I can help it and that sort of thing. And that saves you from those stupid email exchanges of, hey, would you like to meet? I have, Tuesday afternoon, Wednesday from this time, and Thursday from this time. Then you write back to me on, Thursday morning and say, I'd like to meet Thursday afternoon, and that time's already booked. And we spend 40 minutes going back and forth arguing about times. This way I send somebody a link, it's up to the minute, it sucks all the data out of my calendar. It has kind of my own rules set in there, and it saves that back and forth. Third tip, get a dedicated space and keep it clean. And this may feel like it's an easy tip for me to give living in the suburbs and actually having 2 dedicated workspaces. If you're in an apartment in Manhattan or Tokyo or whatever, and you're sort of taken aback saying, hey, I can barely afford space for myself, let alone a dedicated workspace. I think you can still put this tip into action. And you don't necessarily need to have a whole room in your house. You don't necessarily have to have this big, fantastic, dedicated physical space. Even if you're working from your kitchen table, create some ritual around converting that kitchen table into your workspace. So, I've heard of people that'll put their laptop in a work bag every day, and then when they're ready to work, they take their bag out, they put it on the table, they take the laptop out. Some people have a little, token or talisman they put on the desk. It could be a little vase with a fake flower. It could be a picture of, something. But essentially what you're trying to do is create this mental trigger that, hey, I'm at work now. I'm sitting in my space. Even if it was the kitchen table 15 minutes ago, it's now my office. I've got my work tools here. I've got things laid out, and I'm ready to be productive, and I'm ready to start my day. If you do have a dedicated space, and again, that could be a corner of your room, and I've lived in apartments, I've worked on the kitchen table and that sort of thing, or it could be a dedicated room, try and keep it clean. I will generally on Sunday try and clean up my office. It ends up being our, receiving center for our home. All the Amazon junk gets in there. I tend to have a few projects going and we'll leave some junk around, but I'll try and clean that up. So at least on Monday morning when I come in, the space is clean, things are kind of serene. And again, it gets me into that mode of focusing on, I'm starting the work week, I'm ready to be productive, I'm ready to shift from being at home and hanging out to still physically being at home, but now being in the workplace. Fourth tip, if you're going to invest in anything for your home office, invest in a good chair. And I'm generally somebody that considers themselves a big dumb animal. I don't invest in tons of creature comforts. I would rather buy a camera or a laptop or something cool than buy a piece of furniture. But a good ergonomic office chair makes a world of difference, especially when you're working from home. You tend to sit more. If I'm working through a day, probably the only time I get up other than going to lunch is, to go get some water, go use the facilities. So you're spending a lot more time in that chair. It's not a very healthy thing for your body. And if you're sitting in a bad chair, I started getting a sore back when I had a $50, local office supply store special. That's just not good for you. It's not good for your health, it's not good for your comfort, and it makes working from home a lot less comfortable. A good ergonomic office chair new is gonna cost you probably in excess of $1,000. For me, that was a bit of a kick in the cojones, just putting that much money out for a chair. But conversely, number one, it's good for your health. Number two, you're gonna feel better and not feel sore and not get up like a creaky old man when you do get out of your chair. And number three, a good chair is gonna last you 15 years. So you take that $1,000 over the course of 15 years, $70, $80 a year doesn't look that bad in terms of the amount of comfort it brings you. You can also look on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace. Sometimes people will be selling good chairs. If there's a local company that goes out of business, they may have a whole bunch of good office chairs that they're releasing. There are office supply stores that will sell used chairs and equipment from companies that have gone out of business. So there are some ways to cut costs, but plan on spending $1,000 or more, get yourself a good chair. Don't get some gamer chair or the chair that's $50 at the local office supply store, because your back is going to hate you for doing that. And the final tip, and this is probably the one I struggle with the most, is close down your workday. So just like you have a ritual at the beginning of the day, again, that could be opening up your laptop at the kitchen table, that could be walking into the lovely dedicated room within your home. You also need a way to mentally shut down and stop work. I've struggled with this quite a bit, particularly if you're on, calls in the evening, if you're, wrapping up a call around 7:30 and the whole family's waiting for you to have dinner. The temptation is to hit that hang up button and scoot into the kitchen and, sit down and say, hey, I'm here. The problem with that is your brain is still at work. And this is where I've struggled. You know, you've got the whole family there, you're having dinner. For us, that's a very important thing, is having that family dinner each evening. And, you know, yes, my big old butt is there at dinner, but my brain is still at work. It's trying to process that call. It's, you know, thinking about all the things that I haven't done yet and all that nonsense. So what I try and do, even if I have that late evening call and I'm, you know, rushing to get to dinner, is even if you just take 5 minutes, you know, I'll shut down all my work-related applications. You know, maybe I'll just kind of pace around my office for a couple or 3 minutes. Maybe I'll just close everything down, close my eyes, take a couple deep breaths, but have some ritual where you end the workday. You know, I think the one thing we miss by working from home is, you know, yes, the commute kind of sucked and driving back and forth, but it was a, you know, very concrete and fixed ritual where you would finish the workday, you would get in your car, get on the train or whatever, and you would have that time to decompress and to kind of mentally file away the workday and prepare for your life at home. So to the extent you can duplicate that experience, it'll make you more present for your family, you know, roommates, spouse, whoever lives in the apartment with you. If you live by yourself, you know, it'll let you shift those mental gears and let you engage in your hobbies, let you engage in some rest and relaxation, and not essentially be working around the clock. I think one of the big dangers, and it's become a little bit cliched, but this idea of, you know, sometimes working from home can turn into living at work. And if you don't have these rituals where you're able to shut down, to end your workday, it's very easy to fall into the trap of, you know, oh, my laptop's 20 feet away, you know, let me just poke over there and see who emailed me. Or, you know, it's 10 in the morning or 10 at night and you can't sleep, you know, let me log on and do a few things. Or, you know, sure, I'll schedule that call with, you know, whatever other country at 3 in the morning and, you know, I'll do that 3-4 times a week. You end up just impacting your life to an unreasonable extent. And that not only makes you a less optimized human, but it also makes you a less effective worker. So I'm not just saying you should, you know, sandbag and phone it in or quiet quit or whatever the cool term is these days. Taking care of yourself, you know, bookending that workday, making sure you're taking time for yourself and time to open and close the workday properly will make you a more effective and more productive worker. So if you have any tips that you've come up with working from home, if you have any great ideas, you know, whether it's a practice that you engage in or a gadget or something, throw it in the comments. I am particularly interested, since I am a consumer of these tips as somebody that works from home generally. Would appreciate that. Appreciate you, you know, keep up the good hard work from home, and hopefully these tips help make you a happier and more effective remote worker, and wish you all the best in all your pursuits. Big Heavy, signing out. Peace. Ever wonder why every talking head on YouTube asks you to hit the like and subscribe button at the end of their video? You were right, because we're living in a computer simulation. And our benevolent robotic overlords get just a little bit of energy every time you hit that like. So do me, the rest of civilization, and our benevolent robotic overlords a favor. Mash that subscribe, be kind to each other, keep living your simulated dreams.